G'day mate, 40 here. So when I listened to Kamala Harris and her surrogates, one of their key messages leading up to election day is that Tony Hinchcliffe, the insult comic who performed for 10 minutes at Donald Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, that he decisively swung the election for the Democrats, that Puerto Ricans are outraged, that he made a joke about the large amount of garbage in Puerto Rico, and that this insult comic is speaking at a Donald Trump rally is going to swing the election in their favor. There's no way I'm going to believe that Tony Hinchcliffe played a big role in this election. And it's fascinating that news media wanted to devote 10 times as much attention to Tony Hinchcliffe, an insult comic, and his remarks about Puerto Rico and its real trash problem, compared to the amount of attention they give to Joe Biden calling Donald Trump's supporters garbage, and Mark Cuban saying that Donald Trump is never around strong, confident women. There was a telling video I saw on X where Kamala Harris is trying to field questions and she just looks around like a deer in the headlights. Right? She looks so frightened, so lacking in command, and she's appealing to her aides to intervene and to decide which question she should ask. And Kamala Harris's indecisive, frightened, deer in the headlights body language, like the very opposite of Donald Trump's strong, confident body language. Right? I feel that I can often get a good read on someone just listening to the quality of their voice. And you can also often just get a good read on someone listening to their body language. When you see Donald Trump interact with the news media, he doesn't have that frightened look, that confused look, that head wildly swiveling. So another thing you'll notice about more accomplished politicians is that their necks are stable, right? Their heads are not bobbing and tipping up and down, but their movements are smooth. So Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan would be the embodiment of this, but don't give away your neck when you pivot around and you bob like Kamala Harris does under pressure. It just feels incredibly anxious and insecure. So Kamala keeps giving off this frightened deer in the headlights vibe. And it's such a dramatic contrast to Donald Trump's commanding body language. Right? You want to see a masterclass in body language? Look at how Donald Trump operates. Right? He has command. You don't see him appearing frightened by the news media. You don't see him, appealing for his aides to restore order to reporter questions. So just like the quality of someone's voice is often a dead giveaway about what's going on with somebody, so too the body language. And if one is graceful and smooth in your movements, right, it's very different than the bobbing and jerking and letting go of the length in your neck. So if the neck is free and the head is releasing forward and up, that leads the whole body into your full length and width, because there are more joints in your neck than anywhere else in your body. So any unnecessary tension or compression in your neck, right, if your head's tilting too far forward or back, right, it's going to distort your whole alignment throughout your body. And just compare and contrast, say, the smooth way that Barack Obama presents himself with the weird interfering tension patterns that George W. Bush presented. Compare Ronald Reagan, who was smooth and in command of his movements, with less decisive, less trained politicians. So, ex-Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, called into Mark Halperin's show yesterday, and he says that voter registration trends portend an election result much closer to 1980, when Ronald Reagan had a decisive victory, compared to 2016 or 2020, when you had a nail-biter. So what's more important, voter registration trends, early voting data, or polls? Right? Voter registration and early voting data are much more important. We know that so far the key Kamala Harris constituencies of blacks and Latinos are not turning out in the numbers that she needs to win. So Mark Halperin also noted yesterday that he does not think this election will be close. So for Kamala Harris to win, the female turnout will have to be above 54%, which to the best of my knowledge has never happened in an American presidential election. Right? Do you have access to the data? Have we ever had an American presidential election where the female turnout was 54% or above? So if the female turnout is within normal range of 52%, then Donald Trump will sweep to an easy victory. If the female turnout is 55%, then Kamala Harris will likely sweep to an easy victory. But I can't imagine the female turnout is going to be unprecedentedly high. 55%? When has it ever been over 52%? Please correct me if I'm wrong. American presidential elections. The Trump campaign has done a lot of outreach to young men and don't appear to be getting a big return for their buck. Right? It wouldn't surprise me if total voting turnout is lower this year than in 2024, which is surprising considering we probably have an additional 5 million Americans. And this Republican confidence, a Trump victory, it's been there for a month and it's been growing. And the two campaigns are acting as you would expect, right? And then you have Kamala Harris's campaign, which is just throwing messages at the wall. Right? They're trying to make such a huge deal out of an insult comic, Tony Hinchcliffe, trying to make a huge deal out of Donald Trump saying that chicken hawks such as Liz Cheney wouldn't be nearly so pro-war if they ever had to serve. And they're trying to spin that into Donald Trump threatened Liz Cheney with execution. Then Trump engaged in some dark humor yesterday in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where he said if in the next assassination attempt they shoot at him through the press gallery, he wouldn't mind. Right? It's dark humor. And to try to spin that as Donald Trump's threatening the execution of journalists seems absurd. Like, what kind of level of desperation, anxiety would you have to seize on those remarks as anything but dark humor? Right. So I don't think the Kamala Harris campaign would be seizing on Trump's jokes as major talking points if they weren't desperate to try to find a message that lands with undecided voters. Right, people will overwhelmingly vote on the basis of their self-interest, on the basis of their peer group, and the hyper-educated voters are going to vote on the basis of whether or not Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And I accept that there are ways that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. There are ways that Kamala Harris is a threat to democracy. Right? Both sides of the political spectrum, right? Both the right and the left have their qualms and their reservations about democracy. It's not just purely a right-wing thing that has reservations about democracy. Right, the left, when they had control of the courts, they were quite happy for the courts to consistently rule referendum passed by the people, often in overwhelming numbers, such as Proposition 187 in California in 1996, that would deny some welfare benefits to illegal aliens, overwhelmingly passed by the people of California and then invalidated by a left-wing California Supreme Court. And the left was quite happy for this to happen. You'd think that this would be recognized as a diminishment of democracy, but when the left has power, right? What you see? What the heck? Why is the screen going